It feels so good when you speak and you can hear that the words are coming out of your mouth super polished and super crisp and super concise. Today, I'm going to teach you something I call the 4S framework so that you know how to articulate your thoughts concisely, crisply, and elegantly every single time. The 4S framework is a step-by-step framework that you will use to organize what you want to say. The first S of the 4S framework stands for spark. This is where you spark your audience's excitement around the topic you're going to be speaking about. Here's something so interesting that most people don't know. A lot of people assume that crisp, elegant communication comes from using fewer words and getting straight to the point. And what's so interesting is that crispness and conciseness doesn't come from how long or short your content is. It comes from how engaging your words are to your audience. We've all heard the saying, time flies when you're having fun. The same applies to communication. When your audience is having fun and they feel interested in what you're saying, you can share something long and even a little bit rambly, and they're not going to notice. This is why the first part of the 4S framework is spark. If you can manage to spark their excitement right from the beginning, no matter what you say next, whether it's crisp and concise or whether you accidentally ramble just a little bit, your audience is going to perceive you as being crisp and elegant. I like to call this the spark effect. And this is why you want to start by sparking that enthusiasm and excitement for your idea. So here's an example of what that would look like. Instead of saying, today I'm going to update you on our marketing project, you would say something like, the goal of our marketing project is to help us get closer to next quarter's sales goals. Let me update you on where we're at. You have now transformed that opening from something uninteresting to something that's going to be highly compelling, especially if you have executives and senior leaders sitting in your audience or in your meeting. When you open this way, everything that you say next will automatically sound more crisp and concise. Let's now go to the second S, which stands for structure. This is where you're going to break up your idea into a simple 2 or 3 part structure. Structure is like a secret sauce that makes everything you say feel more polished and concise. I really want you to think about places in the world where structure makes something chaotic feel simple. For example, a restaurant menu is structured into an appetizer section and main courses and then sides. Or an airport is structured into terminals and gates and arrivals versus departures. I want you to really think about a restaurant menu that doesn't have structure, where there's drinks and sides and desserts and appetizers and steaks, like just all mixed together in one section. Or an airport that has no structure, right? Like every gate, every airline, everything is all in one blob with no clear order or separation. It becomes chaotic. But when you put just a tiny bit of structure around it, it doesn't feel chaotic at all. It's such an interesting thing, right? So when you speak, you want to apply the same principle and you want to break down what you're sharing into some sort of structure. So let me give you an example that builds off of the one I've been using. Step 1 is spark. So you would say, I'm excited to update you on our project because it's helping us get closer to next quarter's sales goals. Then you'd bring in structure and you'd say, there are 3 things I want to update you on: the timeline, the budget, and our immediate next steps. Do you see how crisp and polished this already sounds? It's so easy and so simple, and it completely transforms your audience's perception of you. Now they know that you're organized, they know that you have a plan, and it's easy for them to follow along because they have a mental roadmap of what you're going to cover. And It's easier for you as the person speaking because you also have a mental roadmap of what you're going to cover. Before I get into the third S, I want to let you know of a free printable worksheet that I have created. It's called 5 Phrases That Will Help You Command Respect as a Leader. It teaches you 5 easy phrases that you can start using right away in your corporate job. These phrases are going to help you elevate the quality of your communication and come off more crisp and executive. To grab this free worksheet, click the link either in the description box or in the show notes. Let's get into the third S of the 4S framework, which stands for story. After you have sparked your audience's excitement and shared a structure, you are now ready to get into the meat of what it is you want to say. And this is where storytelling becomes critical. Storytelling can take information that would otherwise feel long and clunky and boring and make it feel more digestible and just more elegant for your audience to hear. As humans, our brains are wired to tell stories and hear stories, and everything feels easier for us to understand and more digestible when it's told in a story format. I want you to think of a movie like the Titanic. Titanic is 3 hours and 15 minutes long. It won Best Picture. No one ever said that the movie was too long. People loved that movie. But now I want you to imagine if the Titanic wasn't released as a story, if it wasn't shared in storytelling form. So I want you to imagine that 3-hour movie listed out in Google Docs, just bullet points saying, here's what happens first, and then here's what happens next, and then here's what happens next. And you have hundreds of pages of Google Docs describing what happens in the movie, but not in a storytelling form. That would be painful, right? Like for me, that sounds like it would be a punishment to have to read through that. This goes to show that storytelling transforms information into something that we really enjoy consuming. Now, you might be thinking, Jess, the things that I talk about at work and the updates that I share aren't like the Titanic. There's no romantic story of 2 unlikely lovers coming together and then being torn apart. And while that might be true, it doesn't mean that you can't use storytelling. Most professional updates actually can be shared in a storytelling format. So let me show you an example. Building off of the example I've been using, let's say you want to talk to your audience about the budget for your project. And the facts are that this project requires a $3 million budget, but your team only had $2 million available, and you were able to move money around and be creative in order to find the extra $1 million and give your project the $3 million it needed. That's a lot. That's boring, right? That's going to feel like just a lot of information coming at your audience. And so we want to shape it into a story. And there is a story in there. You faced an obstacle and you overcame the obstacle in order to get the budget to where you need it to be. So here's an example of what this would look like if told as a story. You might say, we're happy to share that we overcame some obstacles around the budget. We only had $2 million available, but we were able to creatively reallocate some funds so we can secure the full $3 million that is needed for a project like this. This is a subtle adjustment, but I've changed this update from just like these bulleted facts that stack on top of one another to this cohesive story of an obstacle that was overcome. It immediately sounds more polished, more concise, and more interesting and engaging to my audience. This brings me to the final S, which stands for stick the landing. I want you to think about if you take a flight and the entire flight is smooth and the pilot does a great job, but then the landing is so turbulent and so scary and there's so much movement. When you get off that plane, you're going to remember the landing and how rocky it was. So it is important that when you finish speaking, You glide in with that smooth, tight wrap up. This is easier than most people think because to stick the landing, all you have to do is go back to the very first S of the 4S framework, which is spark. That same excitement that you sparked at the very beginning, you can spark again at the end to stick your landing. So, for example, you might wrap up this update by saying, and we're looking forward to getting this off the ground so we can move closer to those sales goals. This is the same idea you used at the beginning to spark everybody's excitement. You talked about how the project is helping with your organization's sales goals. You can literally recycle that at the very end to remind everyone why this is exciting, and that will give you a clean, simple, easy way to stick the landing. So, in summary, articulating your thoughts clearly and concisely is much more about how you package your thoughts and arrange your thoughts. And you can use the 4S framework to do that really effectively. You start by sparking excitement and telling your audience why they should care about what you're going to talk about. Then you'll share a simple structure so that it's easy for them to follow. Then you will use storytelling to make the information more digestible. And finally, you will stick the landing by re-sparking that excitement and reminding them why the thing you're sharing about is a positive thing for everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. Don't forget to grab the free 5 phrases worksheet. I will make sure to link it below in the description box or in the show notes. And if you have a friend, a teammate, a coworker who is also working on elevating their communication skills, share this episode with them so that they can use this framework as well. Thank you for being here, and I will catch you next week. Bye.